Ben Shapiro's fingers hovered tremulously over the laptop's trackpad, every fiber of his being screaming to recoil from the profane evidentiary displays populating the monitor. Yet some deeper calling tugged his moral compass forward into the abyss despite screaming intuitions to look away. This wasn't some gaudy fabrication or salacious rumor mill birthed from sordid tabloid bowels seeking to detonate societal fault lines for transient clickbait relevance. No, the damning assets contained within these encrypted palace archives represented an institutional betrayal of sacrosanct trust so utterly debased, it threatened the integrity of humanity itself. Taking a steadying inhale, the prominent conservative commentator steeled himself before opening the first blasphemous exhibit, an ultra-high-resolution CT scan depicting an unmistakably pregnant Meghan Markle midway through her gestation. Every organic structure appeared present and accounted for: the fully formed amniotic sac, placental tissues and delicate umbilical network nourishing the developing fetus amid flexing muscle tendons and protective bone structures. From outward inspection, nothing seemed out of the ordinary compared to any other clinical case documenting a viable pregnancy's physical progression within the second trimester. Yet as Shapiro's cursor navigated to the next sequence of scans deeper into the data trove, contextual anomalies manifested that steadily raised disquieted crimson flags about the entire process legitimacy. Conflicting due dates and erratic embryonic development indicated across cumulative examinations created timelines completely out of alignment. Even more damningly, the density scan visualizations almost appeared to show active signs of anatomical fabrication, as though critical components were selectively grafted and edited onto different baseline compositions like macabre Photoshop layers. Finally, Ben experienced the consummate revelation confirming his worst suspicions upon examining the ultrasound recordings. This entire pregnancy existed as an insidious work of fiction from the very inception. What initially appeared to depict a perfectly normal fetus eddying within amniotic solution and emitting periodic pulse signatures upon closer inspection, devolved into something infinitely more sickening once Shapiro realized the discrepancies. Not only was there zero visual evidence of an actual life form present, but the entire charade amounted to a digitally composited CGI animation rendering layered with simplistic audio artifacts to simulate a heartbeat. And utterly devoid of any medical diagnostic legitimacy whatsoever. Everything from the hyperreal baby bump distension, faux Doppler vital sign recordings to the simulated anatomical imagery spanned an elaborate months-long ruse perpetrated by Meghan Markle and her co-conspirators to accelerate a clearly premeditated agenda. How far did this grifter's obsessive ambition gambit extend into veiled subterfuge? Wondered Ben, manufacturing fraudulent medical records while performing for the cameras in a custom pregnancy bodysuit apparatus to sell the illusion of impending motherhood as leverage. It didn't require substantive imagination to deduce the true motive behind this protracted deception once he followed the evidentiary paper trail. An increasingly isolated Prince Harry had clearly become a prisoner trapped within his own family's regal cage, yearning for freedom from suffocating palatial traditions. So when Meghan arrived as his destined lifeline, her true motives operated on an entirely different embedded system level, physically and symbolically impregnating herself with the key to permanently rupturing the prince's familial bonds and birthright forever. Once indoctrinated into embracing her ultimate phantasm of unfettered reinvention, the Duchess took their partnership to its most depraved logical extreme. A high-concept theater compelling His Royal Highness loyalties to definitively transfer from the crown to a completely confected heir and succession mythology. Suddenly, so many erratic outbursts and condescending overtures from the former Suits actress abruptly strained credibility. The absurd spectacle of her brazenly usurping ceremonial precedence and expecting the entire palace apparatus to bend in fealty towards this new American upstart hierarchy. Shapiro grimaced anew at the psychological manipulations clearly in play. Every bombastic public accusation of institutional racism or humanitarian crisis must have amounted to shrouded threats wielding motherhood as leverage should the royal family refuse discarding protocols for the Duchess' reality distortion field. All, of course, under the steadily reinforced illusion that the entire Windsor lineage now remained under vassalage to the whims of Meghan's crowning falsehood. That sole pillar of post-truth mythos literally supplanting every existential imperative stemming from secular duty's bedrock foundations. While certainly startling, even that depravity didn't represent the true depths of just how perversely this duplicitous production achieved manifestation in practice. After scanning several more backroom production documents filled with cold diagnosis, Ben's trembling hand reflexively obscured his mouth as vertigo set in. The medical memos confirming Meghan Markle likely subverted even the most naturalistic circumstances of her supposed maternity via unspeakable avenues. Not simply orchestrating an entire, phantom pregnancy, and fictionalizing its physiological implications, but willingly subjecting herself to deliberately reprehensible violations. Experimental stem cell infusions meticulously administered during each trimester by disreputably procured medical personnel to generate Meghan's baby bump mass and mimic the body's natural biomechanics under examination in pursuit of authenticity. Abortions with each recurring artificial insemination attempt in pursuit of achieving the perfect photogenic infant that in actuality never existed, each remains systematically excised as medical waste with the Duchess' full consent in service of the big lie's perpetuation. At one point the receipts even detailed ghoulish contingencies of trafficking with international surrogate breeders in case her own overmedicated ovum proved too unreliable for achieving specific aesthetic optics. All while radiating the glowing embodiment of feminine grace and compassion for public consumption in counterpoint. Bile burned Ben's esophagus just attempting to parse the full gravity of depths these revelations unveiled. He recoiled from the laptop while panting to steady his pulse. How could any human rationalize perpetuating such a perverse and depraved abrogation of natural laws towards cementing unilateral control over perceptions? To essentially destroy the very organic concept of motherhood's essence itself in exchange for leveraging its iconography across media narratives. Raking another gulp of musty office air into his lungs, Shapiro found himself adrift upon what remained of his mooring in reason. How much longer could he or any other rational freethinker evade capitulating to this insurgent postmodernism's reality-bending ethos steadily toxifying civilization? What fleeting ethical thresholds still remained inviolable once even the most sacred biological truths themselves could be flagrantly debased into malleable tools of psychological exploitation, wielded by anyone accumulating enough influence over meta-narratives to simply assert counterfactual competing worldviews into manifest destiny? As he surveyed the ashes of his perception smoldering across the corrupted digital exhaust surrounding him, Shapiro drew one grim conclusion: this waking nightmare couldn't simply be stifled or discredited. It needed to be obliterated from the realm of discourse with celestial finality before its ideological virus permanently overrode all sense of empirical reality and definitional absolutes. And the only catalyst for neutralizing such an existential depravity spread to emblemize something far more sinister than the petty indiscretions of a single misguided narcissist. Scorching the very earth it sprouted from became the only logical recourse left, thought Ben as his thumb hovered over the upload button.